And you started your career where, in South Africa?
Yeah, I started my journalistic career in South Africa, having worked at Reuters, Africa, Forbes Africa magazine, Business Day, before moving on to work in media development at JamLab Africa, and then joining Journalism AI thereafter.
And where were you the happiest?
The happiest, I am at a beach somewhere in Africa.
I'm asking work related, professionally.
Nobody dreams about work. Everybody loves being on holiday and having fun, but really, work-wise, professionally, I think I'm enjoying the space. At the moment, it's exciting. There's no day that's the same, and I'm learning a lot. And so I've been happy for the past 2 years, and I'm hoping to still be happy in the next couple of years while I'm learning a lot about AI and, yeah, failing and learning like everybody else.
Are you a small newsroom or a one-person content creator? And are you, like my guest today, happy to fail fast and fail often? You may not have a designated tech team, yet you want to use AI-powered tools to speed up your work and solve certain problems. Are you tempted to use AI to produce even more content? Pause here and reconsider. Might there be better ways to use generative AI to advance your work and develop a deeper understanding of those whom you serve? We're discussing all of this and more with Tshepo Tshabalala from LSE's JournalismAI Global Initiative, which helps small newsrooms like yours devise ideas and solutions for using AI wisely and responsibly. I started this conversation by asking Tshepo what kinds of projects they work on with different newsrooms around the world.
So at Journalism AI, we ourselves don't specifically work on projects. And so we work with news organizations who are working on projects. And so one of the most exciting work that we're doing now is we recently launched the Journalism AI Innovation Challenge, supported by the Google News Initiative. And with that, we are trying to really get an understanding or get small to medium-sized newsrooms to start experimenting with AI. And so over the years and through our research, we've learned that small newsrooms are experiencing multiple sort of challenges, from competing with limited pools of funds or finding tech talent, and these are lessons we learned from our newsroom, but also the research we've done. We thought putting together an innovation challenge to really find the best exciting innovations with using AI in news production and distribution from small newsrooms would be our next work, to really work with them, help them figure out how to implement it into the newsroom, how to work with the tech, etc. We already do this through the fellowship program, but the difference between the fellowship program and the innovation challenge is that on the fellowship, the beauty of the fellowship is that different newsrooms from different parts of the world work together on a solution. Whereas with the innovation challenge, the newsroom decides whether they work alone or they find collaborators. And so the idea is for them to build the solution for themselves for the newsroom, whereas on the fellowship, you are co-creating a solution and then you decide after the program whether you implement it in your newsroom or not. But yeah, so that's the exciting thing that we are working on right now.
So give us an idea of what kind of small newsrooms you work with. What are the main challenges and expectations from AI-powered tools?
So a lot of the times, a lot of the newsrooms that we work with, the small newsrooms that we're talking to, come onto the program hoping for a quick fix. And then we have to sort of take them a step back to say, no, these are the considerations you need to have in place before you can even think about using AI. And so, for example, I think really a brilliant idea that came out of I don't want to say the idea came out of the Academy for Small Newsrooms, but I think it was spurred by that participation. And so you think about projects like, or organizations like Africa Check, for example. They participated in the first Academy for Small Newsrooms back in 2021. And then from that participation, they were able to think about integrating AI into fact-checking processes, through automation, claim matching, and so for us, that's how success looks like. In the participants coming onto the program, expecting that it will give them quick solutions, and that's what we get a lot of the times. It's like, oh, what app can I use to do this? What organizations can I use to do this? And so we often try not to give those quick responses because at the end of the day, we don't know whether a platform that we recommend will be there tomorrow because the technology is changing so quickly. So we'd rather advise you on the available tech, the concerns, the risks of using AI, etc. And then you are able to go back to your newsroom and implement or put together an AI strategy that works for a newsroom. Another example, for example, is the Arab Reporters Investigative Network, Arij, and also I think they did the similar thing. We had Saja coming onto the program, fearful, an investigative journalist, fearful of using AI. But at the end of that program, it inspired her and it spurred her and the organization to put together an AI strategy for themselves, but also for the work that they're doing. And so for us, that's sort of what we're looking for, inspiring the thinking of how to use AI and not looking for the quick fixes.
Okay. So, what is the first question journalists you work with ask themselves when they decide to allocate resources and use AI to help them with certain tasks? Is it about saving time and money, optimizing, innovating? Maybe it's about their audience needs. So, what do they think about first?
What they think about is efficiencies, optimizing time, and how to work faster and more efficiently. And so a lot of the times it's less the other ones, and it's more about how to be more efficient, especially in less resource newsrooms, because a lot of the times they don't even have the tech support. And so the first question is, what's the quickest and best way to do this? Whether it's through reporting, whether it's production or distribution, they're looking for that quick fix.
So you see, they're looking for a quick fix. But then what about the audience? What about the question why? Because in a way, they're supposed to ask, why do we need to use AI? How do we benefit our audiences by using it in this specific way?
And that's what we try to do in the program, is to bring them back to think about all those questions, because a lot of the times, and we blame it on the hype, right? It's because the big newsrooms are using AI, the New York Times, Bloomberg, etc. And everybody feels like they need to jump onto the bandwagon without considering the implications. They're thinking about the audiences, thinking how it affects the business, the resources, etc. And so through us helping them put together a strategy, we're able to make them think about all those other things, thinking about the audience needs, thinking about the talent, the tech they need, or the training they need. A lot of the times, even a step back is the literacy. And so a lot of the people don't understand AI, and their immediate understanding is what they've seen or Googled quickly, and then now they want to use AI in the newsroom. And so we have to also go back a step back and say, what is the understanding or general understanding of AI for yourself as a journalist, but also within the newsroom? And then you build from that.
Can you share with me a recent example of how a newsroom you worked with solved an issue with the help of an AI tool?
That's a good question. So on the fellowship program, we help newsrooms come up with new ideas to solve issues or build whatever they need. And so one of the fellows in, I think, last year's cohort, for example, so I think it was Arij, ABC Australia, and Deutsche Welle, and they were looking to build a plugin that tracks or detects bias and discrimination in real time in English and Arabic text. And so they are building a plugin that uses or utilizes natural language processing and computer vision to analyze investigations, in-depth reports, photos, videos to detect bias in text. And so, for example, that's one tool that they're using for their newsroom. I know, for example, even though they worked together as three newsrooms, I think if I remember correctly, I know Deutsche Welle is continuing to try and work and build that platform for their newsroom. So they were not looking for a quick fix, but they were looking for something that helps them as a newsroom to detect the bias they pick up in text, to avoid perpetuating the stereotype of bias in existing journalistic work. And so that's sort of one tool that comes to mind. You think about another tool from the fellowship was that came out last year was a tool called MP Interest Tracker. And so what these two newsrooms, I think at the time it was, I think it's the BBC, the Times and Sunday Times in the UK. And essentially what they were trying is to analyze content of UK parliamentary speeches and look at MPs' financial interest to reveal the overlaps between those two organizations. So my understanding, if I remember correctly, is that the documentation of the information from these two platforms are not structured. And so they were trying to build a structure and annotate versions of the register of the members of parliament's interests, which are updated daily, highlighting when MPs give speeches on issues which they also have a financial stake in it. And so, they're trying to build a solution that works for their newsroom.
So it's kind of tailored to their newsroom. Could any other newsroom use that kind of tool? Or again, they created a tool based on the data they have and the needs they had?
So some of these tools can be used for other newsrooms, but they are focused on a problem they're trying to solve for their newsroom. And that's what we try sort of teach, is that figure out what problem you have in your newsroom, and then you build from that. The quick solutions are there in like automating, transcription, etc. Those are easy stuff. But think about other challenges that you are experiencing as a journalist, as a newsroom, and then you build from that. And then sometimes, for example, and that's the beauty of the fellowship, I guess, is that some of these platforms can be used by other newsrooms. And that's why we promote collaboration, because essentially one challenge or problem that one newsroom has, another has the same problem. It's not necessarily that a challenge or a problem is exclusive to a specific newsrooms. A lot of these challenges are similar, and so you're able to adopt them or pick up or use some of these platforms in the newsrooms. And that's why, for example, on our website, we have what we call the case studies database, where we try to list all the case studies that are coming out from different newsrooms so people can see what others are doing. Because I think when I was a student, my lecturer used to say, there are no new ideas. Everything you want to do has been done. The only difference is how you want to do it. And so the same sort of applies to challenges or problems in problems in using AI to solve them, essentially.
You probably notice yourself in your work, Tshepo, that people and industries in different parts of the world use AI differently and have different access and different skills. Because you work with smaller newsrooms and outside of Europe. So based on your observations, do you feel that we're creating more inequality? Because again, the resources that BBC or New York Times have, a smaller newsroom in Kenya or Uganda, they don't have, right? But they still want to compete, or they still want to be relevant to their audience.
I think the inequalities will always be there. That's the sort of way of life. And the sad reality is AI platforms are trained on existing content that has the biases, the inequalities already. And so with us, we are trying to minimize or cut down on those inequalities by focusing on both the large newsrooms and the small newsrooms to minimize that gap in the AI adoption, or at least the thinking about AI literacy. And so that's where we want to work in helping smaller newsrooms come up to speed to where the bigger newsrooms are. Of course, the bigger newsrooms will always be the bigger newsrooms. Big take will always be big take. It's difficult to try and challenge them. The best thing we can do is to work hard to make sure that that gap between the big organizations doesn't grow wider.
What is the common mistake or misperception of AI in a storytelling context among the newsrooms and journalists you work with?
I think the easiest low-hanging fruit there is thinking that AI can produce a story that is perfect without error, without hallucinations, and we can just rely on AI to do the work for us, and then we can look away. People think that machines are there to do the work, but really AI is there to support what you're doing, to add to what you're doing, to give you a bit of support more than anything so that you can focus on the other things. You find journalists or newsrooms wanting to produce more articles quicker. And it's like, yes, you can, but you still need somebody to read those articles, to edit them, to make sure they're sound, to make sure they're factually correct.
Do you still kind of encounter this kind of thinking? You just said they want to produce more stories quicker. But why to produce more? Because people, as we as consumers of news or stories, we don't have time to consume more. Why would they want to produce more?
I think because we are still in that mindset or frame of working where traffic, the more you produce, the better, the more traffic you get to your website, the more advertising you'll get, etc. I think we are still in that, and we haven't tried to rethink journalism, to rethink how we do journalism. And I think that's where sort of the success of smaller niche publications come in, where they do intentional journalism and not try to overproduce content, but produce quality content. And that's where I think journalism should be going. A lot of the journalists, I think it's more than that, is to say we've got the biggest readership. And the only way to get the biggest readership is to have content that, what's the word? Content that benefits or that is interesting to a plethora of people and not focused on a specific set of audiences.
Yeah, that it's kind of, I don't know, solution focused, or the kind of service that you need to service your audience in a way, right? To think what do they want, and again, do they want an article or do they want a community? Do they come to you to read yet another article or to watch yet another video, or they want to feel that they come to your website because you managed to create a community? I don't know. So I hope you do discuss all these issues with the smaller newsrooms as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of the academy in that we get instructors from different parts of the world, from different types of newsrooms, coming to not only share their experiences of using AI in their newsrooms, but also having the participants talk about their challenges, what they're going through, and helping them navigate some of those questions. Because a lot of the times we don't think about the audience. We don't ask the audience what they want. And so through the program, it's as difficult as it is in trying to teach a lot of things. We also have to make sure that our journalists, our leaders in newsrooms go away with not just an understanding of the AI technology, but a rounded understanding of how a newsroom should operate within an AI context. And thinking about us ourselves as not just only knowledge producers, but information bearers, educators, and understanding our audiences, and even going back to ask them. I mean, if you ask newsrooms, how many of them go back and still do research, audience research, asking the audiences, what do you want? What do you like about the website? What should we change? I'm sure a lot of them don't do that anymore. And I think we need to go back to that in really understanding how to change, update our content, our offerings to support those audiences.
So what is your mission? I mean, not your personal mission, but what's the mission of the LSE's Journalism AI program? So what are you trying to achieve?
At LSE, we're trying to make newsrooms aware of the power and how they can leverage AI for the newsrooms. And our work is mainly through media literacy, training newsrooms what AI is about, what it can do for them, what it cannot do, the risks, the concerns, and thinking about an AI strategy for the newsroom. For us, our mission is to make sure the adoption of AI is equitable across the board.
How do you define success? Do you follow up with those newsrooms once they leave you and they go back to their daily hectic journalistic lives? So whatever they've learned, do they actually implement? And how can you check it?
Sure. And so, for example, for the academy, success for us is based on whether a newsroom goes back and implements an AI strategy or starts thinking about AI, etc. And I've given sort of you two examples of that, where you have the Reach Network who went and built an AI strategy. You had Africa Check who started thinking about how to use AI in their work. There's other organizations like Agencia Pública, Shakero, that have gone on and implemented AI in the newsrooms. And so this year, what we started to do is to go back to those newsrooms that participated on the academy, that participated on the fellowship, to actually learn what they've done since the program. And it's a beauty and exciting to see how other newsrooms have gone about implementing AI in the newsrooms and how others are still struggling. You have different types of newsrooms coming onto your programs, ones that have the resources, the tech knowledge to build and continue working, and you have the others who don't have the resources, who have the technical challenges, who can't easily adopt technology the way the others have. And so you're getting two different responses. Well, we're following up with a lot of them, and we're publishing this learnings on our website.
So let's talk a little bit about ethics and kind of how do media organizations and newsrooms you work with, how do they deal with the ethical implications of using AI? What train of thoughts do they have when thinking about it?
I think a lot of the newsrooms are not even thinking about writing guidelines. At least in the global south, a lot of them are more worried about the errors that come from using AI platforms. Platforms are made in the West, are trained on English content. A lot of news organizations we work with don't necessarily work in English or speak or have a different dialect of English. And so when you start using all these platforms, you have to think about nuances, bias that creeps in, the transparency of how to use these platforms and where this information goes, detecting or finding the biases that come out of these platforms. And so a lot of the times, newsrooms are thinking about those challenges, how to mitigate them, how to work around them before even putting together guidelines. I was in Kenya the other day, and some journalist asked, why is it important to even put together guidelines? Why do I need to tell people that I'm using AI? Do I tell people that I used Google to do research to write the story? Why, and you have to teach or guide people on putting together guidelines, but also, also make them think about all the risks that come with using AI, and how to also not minimize the trust you have with your audiences.
Exactly. I think it's a lot about trust. It's like you have editorial guidelines, right? I think using AI is supposed to be part of your editorial guidelines now. What kind of do's and don'ts for your newsroom?
Exactly. And I think Isak Mena from the Press Council of South Africa really said it well, in that they were trying to see how to update the sort of the guiding principles in the Press Council. And they realized that the existing editorial guidelines they have already are applicable to AI. They're not any different. And so it's just a matter of putting AI as a word in there to make sure people understand that the same principles you followed as a journalist are the same principles you should follow with using AI. But we need to be intentional about it, and not assume that people will understand that. And that goes back to the newsrooms talking to each other and not just it being a high level conversation.
Talking about intentions, by the way, one of the most interesting aspects of the whole kind of development of AI, and especially using it in the context of storytelling, for me personally, is creativity versus meaning. Some famous creative people share this opinion that basically AI doesn't create any meaningful text. It recycles the existing meanings and it reduces the amount of intention in the world. So, from your perspective and your observation, Is generative AI a dehumanizing technology that reduces us to someone who recycles meanings rather than creating them? Or you have a totally different experience with it?
And it goes back to original content, right? And that's where the power of journalism is in producing meaningful, genuine content. People having the literacy or the awareness of discerning between regurgitated content as well as meaningful, genuine content. And so it really, I think the literacy goes both ways, not just for journalists, but also for audiences, to understand that the content that AI or at least generative AI platforms produce are regurgitated content based on meaningful, genuine work done through newsrooms. And that's where our value is in producing meaningful journalism. And, and understanding that the technology is only there to support or leverage its power through meaningful, genuine work.
Tshepo, what have you learned about AI and storytelling recently through your work or your journalists you work with that made you think, wow, this is wow?
I remember I came across an article from Al Jazeera where the journalists used AI to reproduce images of a village back in the 1940s in Palestine, based on research that they did, conversations they had with interviewees, sources for the article, and going through history records. I think that was amazing and powerful, using AI and all these other resources to produce images to tell a story where you cannot find the original images of something. And I thought that was so powerful, and a great usage of using Midjourney to produce images to tell a story. I thought that was really powerful. And I think we should learn from examples like that in leveraging the power of AI to really reproduce ideas, thoughts where real images cannot or are not available in that moment to tell us those stories, because images are powerful. And if you're able to leverage AI to do that work, why not?
What's your personal life hack for journalists and storytellers regarding using AI? An advice you could give to yourself?
Play on these platforms, play as much I do, and trying to understand what these platforms can or cannot do. A lesson I learned from yesterday's session on the risks and concerns that Camilla Barth was teaching on the Academy with the Sub-Saharan Africa cohort. And an example I never came across, but she shared this in how if you go on ChatGPT or Gemini, etc., and you ask it how many R's are in strawberry, and you see what the answers that it comes up with, and you're able to understand, okay, this is what the platform can or cannot do.
Yeah, famous example because but it's for now. Even in 3 months' time, it would change probably, even maybe faster.
Absolutely. But at least you have an awareness. You have an awareness of what the tech can do and where your power lies as a journalist, right? I think that's the beauty of it. Yes, technology changes, we know that. But at least you understand now and you are able to follow those minimal changes that happen 2 to 3 months now. They won't be huge, but at least you understand. And hence I say play on these platforms, get to know what they do, get to know what they don't do. And that minimizes the fear and the risks of using these platforms. Because the more you use something, the more you become comfortable with it. Because our director likes to say that the bad people are using AI for negative reasons. Learn how to use AI for good, responsibly. That's what I would say.
Tepo, thank you so much. Before we go in, I have 3, 4 blitz questions. So quick question, quick one sentence answer. But before we go into that, is there anything you find super important in your work regarding AI and using AI in context of journalism? I didn't ask you, but you still wanted to talk about it.
I think we've covered a lot, and I think the one thing is folks should read. Really learn as much as you can about the space, the industry, not only in journalism, but other industries. Learn what AI how AI is being leveraged in other industries and how we can leverage those learnings into our industry. And I think that's sort of the most important. Know as much as possible. Be aware of it.
Absolutely agreed. Actually, the second season of my podcast, I'm interviewing people from different industries and asking them kind of how we as storytellers can use certain things, kind of transferable things, we can use in our industry, which doesn't come easily and doesn't cross our minds because we think from certain perspectives. Super good. So now let's do quick blitz questions. Don't think, just whatever you feel, one sentence. So what are your three dominant emotions about the rapid development of AI? Emotions.
Fear, exciting, anxious.
Fear, excitement, anxiety. I kind of asked you before, but now maybe you can put it in one sentence. So what is your most exciting AI-related project now?
The most exciting work that we're doing is the Journalism AI Innovation Challenge, supported by the Google News Initiative. We are nearing the closing date, and I cannot wait to figure out or learn who are the 35 grantees we will be working with in the next 9 months.
The future of journalism, how would you describe it in 3 words?
Exciting, I'm fearful, but hopeful.
Can you share with us one name, maybe a recent thought-provoking article or research or newsletter you read about the future of AI that made you think or rethink?
I think the one exciting report, and I was glad to be part of this, is the one from OSAFE, where they looked at journalism futures, where they had applications from over 900 folks talking about how they envisioned the future of journalism in the next 15 to however many years. And I think that is a great report to look at ways of how journalism would look like in the future. And I think that's something worth reading and learning from, in really broadening your mind about what AI can do in the next 10, 15, 30 years.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of AI Fluent with me, Ilona Vinogradova, and feel a bit less alone in your everyday newsroom struggles. This podcast was produced by Lovin Films Pro Media Lab. If you would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope you'll join me next time. Until then, take good care of yourself and remember, your stories do matter.